All right, mi gente. Whew. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم. أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا. Juan Ying Leute, bienvenidos a todos. Bakhair Ragle Khushamadid. And as always, Swagatam, Swagatam. Alright, so what is going on? Ora le mi gente, ya jama'a. What is going down? First of all, I can, as always, it's a ritual, people. I gotta do a sound check. Just make sure everything is fine. You know, as much as I like to just go on, I gotta make sure so you guys can all hear me. Sange ale, alright. Sange mazeki. So, Abu Safura, Kitabe, Balobashi. Hopefully, I'm getting that right. So, it's all good. I can see from YouTube, but let me just check with mi gente on Facebook. Where are the chats with Facebook on? You know, all right. So, Imam Trump is on the line. Riz, Tariq, you're clear, Frowdy Frubbery, you're doing it. It's all good, I take it, you can all hear me. So, what is happening, people? What is happening to the world, huh? Right? What is going on? Abe sala ho kya raha hai? So, the world is in quite some in some disorientation. First of all, somebody's asking, Shaji is asking, how are you feeling, Muftiji? Look at that. See, whilst you all are maro, you know, going on here, Shaji he's concerned, saying, Mufti, how are you feeling? Wah, 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 wah. Gio, Shaji, Gio, Meri Jan. I'm pretty good, alhamdulillah. I'm back to usual now. What can I do? We're still in lockdown, so I can't really go back to the gym. So it's just push-ups at home for now, that's it. But alhamdulillah, it's all going good, man. It's all going good. So, who have we got on the line here? Gori, you're doing it. Zeba, as always, you're doing it. Inaya, doing it, people. Right, a super chat. Let me just deal with that. Rock Black. Wah, Rock Black. He says, Salam, dear Mufti. Would you mind to tell us what was the saddest part of your life? How did it change you? Oof. Oh. Ab rulayega kya? You know, you want me to break down in tears on national, or not national, but international live stream. Right. Okay, let me think about that. Huh? What is the most saddest part of my life? Oof. Abbe, there's been so many. इतने गम उठा के फिरते हैं हम. You know. सारी दुनिया के गम हैं गम हमारे, हम भी आखिर किसी का गम ठहरें. He says that all the grief of the world is my grief. I mean, it's only fair that I too am somebody else's grief. So let me come back to that. I got to think about it. You know, it's interesting. There's a lot of things, but let me just get this show on the road first of all. So what will we be looking at today? Some interesting, brief catch-up of some fascinating world events. There's also some questions. I'll be looking at an interesting one on beliefs, which it doesn't tie in with to do with the hadith in Bukhari once again. fascinating, describing God in in somewhat interesting light. So we'll take a look at that and why it's this idea of just taking your beliefs from a single hadith is a fallacy. Also, Miss Patrioncitos, much love to you guys. I'll be taking a look at some of your questions, and one of the questions I want to discuss as well is Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an. I know you've asked me. I will go into that, into some of the ahadith in Sunni Islam that portray Sayyidina Umar in almost prophetic light. What is the reality of these hadith? Cool. And last but not least, we will be taking a look, my beloveds, we will be taking a look at my beloved, okay? My beloved people, the beloved, okay? The beloved. And his interesting discoveries. So as those of you that are unfamiliar, that are beloved, Sheikh Asrar Ratwi Sahib, Damat Barakatuhum al-Aliyah, he has recently gone on a bit of an Indiana Jones discovery mode, where he's discovering all the hidden wonders of the world. I mean, those of you that recall previously, he discovered Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and I'll do a recap of that, where they happen to be hidden. And now,
let me add a little bit of spice to that.
Our beloved has also discovered the Ark of Noah. So, yeah, at this rate, I don't think the remains of Adam alayhi salam are too far off. I think our beloved will, they can try to hide them. They can try. But no. Jahan ye teri nazar hai, meri jaan mujhe khabar hai. So our beloved will get there. The Indiana Jones. So we'll take a little look at that towards the end as well. So, people, what on earth is all of this?
I got maced.
You got maced?
By the police.
And what happened? You were trying to go inside the Capitol?
I made it like a foot inside, and they pushed me out, and they maced me.
They maced her.
What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Elizabeth. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee.
And why did you want to go in?
We're storming the Capitol. It's a revolution.
Thank you.
So those of you that don't know, Bechari Elizabeth got maced. So, what is this? Ye ho ka raha hai. These tears, moving a nation, moving the globe. There's tears, there's too much, too much. So, so people, the Capitol under assault. Oof, under siege. Oof. Bloody hell. If Americans don't do anything just regular, do they? There's Americans, it's either go extra large or go home. How can the rest of the globe keep up with the United States? You had Trump supporters storming the Capitol, breaching, what is the sanctum, the privileged sanctum of politics, of American politics, inside taking selfies, the police being somewhat friendly, but let's hear it from the best part has to go to Donald Trump himself. This has happened. Hundreds of people have stormed. This is a international crisis because the world is looking at America saying, is this really going on? I mean, that's like the House of Commons being just stormed by the public. I mean, can you just imagine? in the UK. What the hell is going on? So, our beloved,
I know your pain. I know you're hurt.
ah,
We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now.
go home.
We have to have peace.
Let's
We
have
have
peace.
to have
people.
law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a
No.
very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where
Never.
such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election. But we can't play into the hands of
No,
these people.
no, God forbid.
We have to have peace. So go home.
Go home.
We love you.
We love you.
You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
I mean, let's be real. Come on. I mean, that is amazing, isn't it? That's how you want a woman to always defend you. I've caught you doing that again? Go home. We love you. Ah, you're Trump. Trump, you gotta give it to him. This is how Trump deals with what could be, interpreted by some as almost treason. He says, you know what? You've suffered a lot. Go home. Be safe. We love you, yaar. We love you, yaar. Love. So, bloody hell, what is going on, people? What is going on, mi gente? What is going on? This, right, to be fair, there's a hell of a lot. Imagine, on one hand, you can imagine the Black Lives Matter movement had made its way to Capitol Hill and attempted something like this. It would have probably ended within probably 45 seconds as they would have just sprayed, gunned down all the protesters and any passerbys that just happened to be black as well. So, on one hand, you've got that, and then you've got this, look, yaar, yahan pe dukhta hai. I understand your pain, yaar. Go home. We love you, yaar. We love you. So, but in all honesty, it's not, I don't think this is just Trump. I think in one way it's easy to say that, look, this is Trump, he's a megalomaniac, and, these are a bunch of hillbillies. But the truth is, I think America, this is in many ways reflective of the United States. That the United States is just so wild. It's not like this is, I suppose it's a violent event. Several people, at least one person died, if not maybe a few more, but people got injured. You've breached this political sanctum, but extraordinarily crazy, wacko events are no stranger to the United States. I mean, this is a country where things like school shootings are, just another school shooting. I mean, can you imagine that in the rest of the world? It's like shooting up a school. What the hell is that about? I mean, what the hell is that? And there it's like, it's another school shooting. This is a part of the world which is home to an exceptionally tiny super, hyper, successfully rich people of this globe who put together would outbalance the GDP of many countries combined. I mean, that's just so mind-boggling. And simultaneously, it's the home of a state where, do you remember years back, Hurricane Katrina? Those people haven't even had their restoration yet from a natural catastrophe a few years ago, let alone all the other catastrophes that have happened. It's a crazy country. I mean, I was just reading that in the last few terms, so including Obama, people saying that this, the Democrats are now Biden's gonna save the world. I don't really think so, but obviously, yeah, he's better than Trump. I get that, but I was reading how, including the Democrats, the last couple of terms, so under Obama and Trump, you had the billionaires of the United States, their wealth had increased collectively up to almost 100%. It was about 80%. Their wealth had increased. I'm talking about the billionaires. Okay. Whilst you've got, and this is reflective of, in the pandemic as well. There was something showing that in the pandemic alone, the rich had made over $630 billion, whilst the 40 million, I think it was, it was something like that, Americans were out of employment. And what is the American population? 300 million. So a huge chunk is out of population. I mean, out of employment. So wow. And it was saying something like one out of a handful of people, I think 1 out of 4 people, didn't even have $400 in his bank account. Did not even have that. Whilst you've got some of the most ludicrously wealthy people, and I'm not against being wealthy, but I'm just saying this is just, it's what is going on in America. It's just crazy, isn't it? The whole country is built on eradicating an entire race of people and then just keeping them, just inebriate and drunk with their casinos. Race relations, bloody, it's a nightmare. I think there's so much. This is not, in my understanding, just a Trumpian issue. I think that's naive, thinking that this is just Trump. This is welcome to the United States. That's what it is, I think. So I don't know whether they can fix it or what. I had a theory that I think, you see, the people that migrated to America to set it up, the Europeans, I'm talking about, the people who count the white people, right? I feel, for the most part, the people that moved would have been the very risk-taking folk. Like, it's a huge risk. You're going to travel thousands of miles. You're going to go by boat. You don't know what's going to happen. Diseases, sickness, wild animals. You don't know what you're going to encounter, but it's a risk. So they were, I think, high risk takers that kind of moved there. And you see, I think that's genetically contributed. It's a significant factor for explaining some of these psychotic events and incidents of the United States. Because I think that part of their gene pool has been people that have been very, prepared to take chaotic steps, prepared to. Hence, you get the United States. Even now, one could argue that's culture, but they happily will move around. The people, they'll fly to a different state, settle down there. They'll do, and I think I could be. This is just speculation, but that maybe the kind of gene pool that contributed to that, especially in terms of being risk averse or risk taking or highly, the high risk taking factors, that may have played a role in the landscape of the United States today. Hence, you get crazy people, serial killers, school shooters, this kind of stuff. But anyway, food for thought, people, food for thought. High on impulsivity. Yeah. I think that's, but yeah, it's food for thought. Cool, people, what is going on? Mufti Saab, check your Instagram. Abe, I can't check it right now, can I? Ka pata. Nowadays you have to be careful when you open certain messages in public. Public dekh rahi hai. You never know. Could be one of those pranks. You know which one I'm talking about, you haramis. Right, so what is going on, people? What is going on? Let's share with a poem, yaar. This is one. We've heard this before, but I had to bring this back. कब तक क्या? मैं जमुना की तरह तन्हा निहारूं ताज को कब तक, कोई गंगा मिले तो मैं इलाहाबाद हो जाऊं. हाय 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 हाय. गजल कहने लगा हूं मैं, जरा सा मुस्कुरा तो दो, यही तो चाहती थी तुम कि मैं बर्बाद हो जाऊं. वाह 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 वाह. So let's take a look at what's going on with the Jama'ah, with you guys. What's going on? There's a question here. Rami Nazim has asked, they're not crazy. The news is wholly sensational. While it's not as take as the Commonwealth, they are not as wild as Saudi, the Levant, South Asia. Moreover, they are the beacon of innovation. It's come out of the East lately. They've got problems, which is expected, but it's a large country for the most part. As with most, it's business as usual. The wealth gap is a global phenomenon. They were built from a rebellion of the monarch. It's in the... Okay, it's in their blood. I think you need to live in the US a few years. The views you shared are naive, in my opinion, with all due respect. Of course. Sure, Rami. Yeah, Rami galla Rami has an interesting meaning as well. So, no, you make a good point. I agree that, look, I'm not dissing the United States when I said that. It might come off as a diss, but I was not dissing it. I was saying that, you see, the United States is sometimes the perception of the United States is quite deceptive. There's this, it's not quite like Europe in certain values, for example, when it comes to human rights and things like this. It's not, but ironically, some people in the US are also the champions of these projects. So it's interesting. And then it's a strange place. You've got the greatest innovation in the world, and you've got some of the most, poorest states in which people are living. You've got some of the most incredible wealth and, it's an economic global power, but yet they won't even provide free healthcare to their own citizens. So it's kind of paradoxical. I'm not dissing it. I mean, there's problems with every country. I think the United States is, in many ways, it's like an experiment. I don't know what's to... But don't take it as a diss. I'm just being real. I think that it's got, in some ways, it's just so wacko, This is what, and the school shooting thing is an example. I mean, Can you imagine how just the thought of that children are being shot? It's like sends shivers down, and yet, unfortunately, tragically, it's become somewhat casualized. But anyway, my love to the United. Here's the dollars. Geo. Right, so let's move on, people. Let's move on. So, nice Tovia. I don't know what that is. I'm a Naqshbandi Murid myself. That was a statement from Mustafa Abdullah Khan. ठीक है यार. Anybody else want to just make general statements? This is what my show has now become. People just coming on making generic statements. ठीक है? Don't mind me. Me. It's not all about me. So, what is going on? The Trump Twitter thing is interesting. Banning Trump. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose they did it because he could cause a revolution. And they probably want to stop that. But, freedom of speech is a... I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I need a few more kuch... Skull. So, what is going on, mi gente? Let's take a look at some of the questions on Facebook as well. Somebody said, Yaar, you're neglecting us, Facebook people. Kahan, yaar? I love you guys. How can I neglect you? Has Mufti Abu Layth switched from WhatsApp to Signal yet? No, I haven't actually. Salam, Mufti Abu Layth. I have a few questions on surahs of the Quran. Is it a sunnah to recite Surah Yasin in the morning to earn blessings? No, it's not a sunnah to do that. Lol, you should react to confessions. Anybody want to make a confession? That'll be an interesting one. Let's react to some confessions, guys. Let's get some confessions up here. All right, let's do this, people. The ban is censorship. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Salam, Mufti Abu Layth. I have a few questions. Abe pucho bhi yaar. Ask for them. Henna, we love you too much. Love all of you as well. You're doing it. Is it halal for Muslims to eat meat at Jews? Eat it at Jews. Take that, you Jew. I don't know. Even the Jewish guy's like, I don't get it. Even he gets confused. He's like, I'm sure I'm supposed to be getting upset at this, but I don't know why. I mean, we've got to take a look at this question. Furqan Rafiq has asked, is it halal for Muslims to eat meat at Jews? I don't know, man. Or Christian dinner party. Innati, going to dinner parties. You think we don't know what happens at these parties? Partay, let's partay. So, right. Let's take a look at some of your questions, people. S. Miyagi, Mr. Miyagi, Hip Sensei, has sent in a question. Dua's requested. Had a major surgery. Still struggling. Shafaq Allah, may Allah grant you complete and swift recovery. Shafaq Allah wa afaq. Ameen. Inshallah. Hang in there. Yeah, all the supplements you can get them in there, inshallah. Mufti Sahib, what is your opinion of Sheikh Abu Isa Ni'matullah? Sheikh Abu Isa, there's I haven't recently come across much of his stuff recently. I don't know why that is. Either the algorithms are just not bringing it to me, or he's not, getting more content out there. He needs to watch a few Gary V content, man. Content. Can I be real with you? Like, just get more content. So he needs to. I don't know whether he's not producing enough content or he is, but I'm just not seeing it. So yeah, you see the Abu Isa Ni'matullah, Sheikh Abu Isa, he is, to be fair, from many of the things that are coming to my mind, he's quite balanced in the Salafi dawah. So he's quite, from what I heard, he doesn't just kind of rant the Salafi thing, although he is from that background. But he's generally level-headed from what I understand. I don't know. I gotta see what he's been saying recently. The last thing I remember about him was that the zakat thing. I remember that out of the blue, he just made some post saying giving your zakat to this particular foundation is haram. And he was an advocate of that foundation, and it was like, yaar, ye sasura rajniti ka hai. What's this politics? Because there's always more going on behind the scenes. So I was trying to, at that time, that's the last thing I remember, actually. The main thing that he'd been, and in between there were, one, two little things. But yeah, so, yeah, I mean, I wish him well. But I'll have to follow up. Yeah. So what's going on, people? A level-headed Salafi. Yeah, I mean, you see, Salafi da'wah, the Wahhabi da'wah, is, obviously, it's a huge problem. Naturally, any problem with it brings some opportunity as well. That's, nothing in this world is usually 100% bad, unless it's colon cancer. then it's pretty much 100% bad. Imagine the doctor saying, like how nothing in this world is 100% bad, and you're like, mm-hmm. He's like, well, well, this is an exception, I'm afraid. So anyway, right, so the thing is that, like anything, it brings its so some things the Salafi da'wah brought were an opportunity to review stale fiqh, out of sync fiqh. But you have to remember something, that the biggest problem of the Salafi da'wah was to dislodge the entire tradition of fiqh, which was our general understanding of Islam. And because it dislodged that, now you could say, well, one benefit was it forced us to reevaluate things, which is fair enough. I accept that. It also revived an interest in hadith studies, and I accept that. But overall, the damage was so wow. But you can get sometimes some Salafis who don't mention much of the Salafi thing as much. They kind of like keep it underground. So that's been my impression with Abu Isa, but I could be wrong because I've not been so exposed to a lot of his stuff. Are we allowed to wear earring at AA? I mean, okay. I mean, if you're gonna at the Alcoholics Anonymous, then I think we've got bigger problems to deal with than the earring. But chalo, have that as your 13th step to to remove the earring, but work your way up there. Let's take some questions, people. Ya Mufti, do you believe that Islam in the postmodern era has become more polarized between the Puritans and the liberals? Definitely. Definitely. I feel that Islam has become massively polarized in this modern age. In many ways, much more than it has historically. We are facing new challenges with old problems, but it's because the way we're facing them is modern. The whole problem is modern, if that makes sense. So, like, you see, it's a bit like this fiqh thing I mentioned with the Salafis and the Wahhabis. You see, one of the problems when you dislodge fiqh, you see, fiqh is fatwas. I give a fatwa, another sheikh gives a fatwa. Now, 100 years later, you may revisit that fatwa, say it doesn't really make sense today, I'm going to change it. Now, one of the problems with taking fatwas as just simple hadith is, you see, changing them becomes a problem, because you're now pitting the person, as opposed to saying, well, this is the fatwa of Imam Abu Yusuf. Well, today it's the 21st century, the day and age has changed, so let's change it. You're now portraying it in a way that you're pitting the person against the Prophet. And you see, it's a new kind of problem. So, but that's something I'll get into at another time. But yeah, I feel that what's happening is more and more people are getting fed up with this literal dogmatist Islam. Many people are unfortunately questioning the faith. Many people are not content with folklore Islam. And they're just kind of, either some are just drifting away from Islam, or some are then maybe finding peace in other understandings. They're reevaluating Islam. On the other hand, you've got a certain minority of people who are very vociferous, very loud, and they have become extra Puritans. It's like dawah man saying, don't even look at the innovator. Yeah, don't even, yeah. Don't even look at the innovator. It is a difficult platform, but khair, I'm still very optimistic. I feel that sometimes, you see, it's like a fever. It's in many ways reflective of the body trying to heal itself, even though there's discomfort. And I feel that this is an opportunity to reconnect to a purer or more pristine, natural understanding of Islam. Inshallah, a deen which is of ease. Seriously. And let me, speaking of Puritanism, there's a very fascinating hadith that I'll bring to your attention. I was reading it just perchance actually the other day. Our perception of revelation, how people will say, the Quran, and it is, look, we must respect the Quran as Muslims, and we must give it that sanctity. But when you're just reciting the Quran, like, let's just say you're not even reciting the entire Quran, you're just saying a part of it, or you're saying something like a dua, or la hawla wa la quwwata, or you're just saying something which happens to be in the Quran as well, like a dua or something. there's this understanding that, oh my God, you must be in a particular ritual state. You must be, it's disrespectful to just say it like this. You can't just, there's a very a puritanist approach, which is very unnatural. It takes you out of, and there's a hadith which is not even sahih, by the way. There's a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, somebody gave him salam and he didn't return it, and then he kind of did tayammum on the wall. And that part people have said is fine, but then this next part is actually da'if, but it's been portrayed as a hadith, that he said, وَمَا مَنَعَنِي أَنْ أَرُدَّ عَلَيْكَ إِلَّا أَنِّي لَمْ أَكُنْ عَلَى طَهَارَةٍ. He said, I didn't, the thing preventing me from returning your salam was that I was not in a state of purity. Now, this is not a valid hadith, but it's circulated. And this mentality exists, that there's states in which you become disconnected from God. And that's not true. People have said the menstrual state is an impure state. Why is it an impure state? Who said it's an impure state? I mean, is it in the Quran? Is there any valid sunnah that where this is from? Where do you get? I can understand. You can say, oh, well, certain women in the time of the Prophet weren't going to the masjid. Yes, I mean, 1400 years ago, you can understand. I mean, even 1,000 years ago, 800 years ago, having sanitary facilities, having just the use of things like tampons and Tampax and stuff like this, these sanitary pads or the alternatives is not something that women have had the luxury of throughout history. So you can understand that, yes, people may have refrained just out of, just kind of thinking that, oh, what if I have my kind of cycle or something whilst I'm here, or, I don't, and that could be an embarrassment for them. But where did it say that they were impure? It never said that. Now, some people just interpreted that. Same thing, this impurity and spirit. And there's a hadith. Now, check this out. There's a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, speaking about one of his wives, speaking about Aisha, radiallahu anha, he says, يَنزِلُ عَلَيَّ الْوَحِي, that revelation would descend on me. Like it would open up to me. I would have this, whether it's in a vision state or I would have revelation, وَأَنَا فِي لِحَافِهَا, whilst I'm in her kind of duvet, if you like, of the day and age. They called it a lihaf. In bed with her. I mean, in one hand, such an intimate kind of state. It didn't say that he was the Prophet, that there was something sexual, but it is an intimate, a very an intimate yet a very natural state. Fil lihaf, just a person in bed. It's a very natural state of being. And revelation. There was no contradiction. This is not and in many ways, these kind of hadiths are, to me, an encouragement to show that the deen ought to be very natural to our lives. Okay, it should never be this kind of artificial impediment. That's to me, and I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but yeah, I thought I'd share that with you. Right, so let me just take a look. All right, Adnan Ashraf, you're doing it with the super chat. Much love, much love. Salam, Mr. Jolly Saab. Wah, Mr. Jolly. All right, so my question is, I've been told king prawns aren't halal. Oh, rather. What does Islam say? quite obversely, Islam says they are permissible. Are they halal or not? Being told anything which doesn't have a backbone isn't halal. Right. Anything which doesn't actually have a bone but may give the perception that it has a bone. Yeah. Tova, yaar, ye. What is going on with this generation, huh? Ho ka raha hai. Kaise so? So, Adnan ji, prawns are halal. Relax, relájate, tranquilate. This is, they're absolutely halal, okay? It's just the Hanafis who kind of had a bit of a, they kind of mixed up their codification and they tried to get very systematic with the deen. So in Islam, everything in the sea is halal. Okay, that's according to the school of Medina. Now, what? Because the hadith said about the bahar, about the sea, hillun maytatu, it's dead or halal. Not if a corpse kind of starts floating, but you get it. Now, the Hanafi madhab said, well, okay, that's fish. But then they fell into a kind of scientific conundrum where they said, well, what about certain species that are in the sea but ain't really fish? Certain kind of mammalian species or other things like squids and prawns, and they're not technically a fish. So they then were like, you know what, we'll call this makruh, discouraged. And then some said we'll call it makruh tahriman. They said, since you're going for it, you might as well go for it. So, which basically means it's kind of haram. Which basically means you shouldn't do it, but if you do it, you are going to go to hell. But we're not going to call it haram, we're going to call it makruh tahrimi. That's the actual definition of the hanafiya. So yeah, you have my sympathies. In brief, you can jump ship and start learning about the school of Medina, and life will just become so much easier. It is amazing that how food is just so simple in the school of Medina. Every single thing is halal. All birds of the sky, all anything to do with the sea, all animals, everything is halal except pig. And then culture dictates what you can have. Obviously, there's things like if they've been sacrificed for other gods and stuff like that, that's different, but that's circumstantial. It's not dispositional, it's situational. You think Mufti can't get technical? So it's more to do with the situation. But actually, by its disposition, only pig is haram. That's a very straightforward. And that's based on the verse of the Quran. قُلْ لَا أَجِدُ مُحَرَّمًا عَلَى طَاعِمٍ يَطْعَمُهُ. That I do not find anything haram upon somebody who wishes to eat except. And then it mentions foods that are offered for the gods or if they're already dead. But then the only creature it mentions is khinzir, pig. Cool, I hope that makes sense. Right. Is it halal to wear earrings as males? As Jordan Peterson would say, well, I believe the biological markers are relevant, man. Please watch my video on it. It's a very detailed video. Watch it. I go into the backdrop. I go into all the evidence. Check it out, people. Idris, you're doing it. Much love. Who is Surah Munafikun actually referring to? Appreciate a clarification on this. Okay, if you'd like a more detailed clarification, then let me do that next week. I'll go through it and actually get the verses up there and we'll go through that. Okay? But in general, the Munafikun, even though the verses are general, but it would be referring at the time to the Munafiqeen within Medina. Right. So, Mufti, what are your thoughts on the late Sheikh Sharawi? Sharawi or Sha'rawi? I don't know really. What are my generally positive thoughts on Sheikh Sha'rawi? I can't say I've been influenced by him. I have heard some of his things and read sometimes some lectures of his. There are, certain things to do with when he's doing tafsir of certain ayat, and he had a very Sufic angle. But yeah, I mean, my thoughts are positive. Right. Adnan Akhtar. All right, mi gente. Adnan Akhtar has unfortunately oh those of us that have known him in the past or his influence as Harun Yahya, to be fair, really, it's one of those things that, like I mentioned before, that not that how things which may be bad are not 100% bad. So he came at a time when Muslims were suffering from an inferiority complex, and in many ways, I'm not trying to blame people for for suffering from an inferiority complex. It's just that Muslims were still kind of very young. We're still kind of very young. I mean, generationally young, not individually. But in the West, we were very young. And at that time, people were insecure about their faith. So along comes all these glossy, well-produced, kind of Salafi, because the Salafi books are well-produced. And Harun Yahya books were well-produced on the miracles, the scientific miracles of the Quran, using biological, technological, scientific language for the day and age, for that day and age. You got to remember, this is going 2 decades ago or more than 2 decades ago. Now, at that time, it came as a wow, because Muslims didn't, when I was about 17, I worked in an Islamic bookshop. I worked in Birmingham. It was called Islamic Vision at the time, but it was the IPCI store, which is the base or the representative of Ahmed Didat's kind of da'wah, or it's an affiliate to Ahmed Didat's da'wah. So at that time, all the Ahmed Didat literature that was being disseminated within the UK would have been coming from IPCI. So I worked there for I can't remember now. It may have, but it was under a year that I was there. So, and it was a very interesting time, I have to say, because you meet all kinds of people. You're working at a bookshop, so you're seeing what's relevant. You get to listen to a lot of lectures, and this was just before I set off on my road to Damascus to study. And right now, see, I've lost my. Oh yes, so at that time, all this stuff. I remember we had all these books there, Harun Yahya books. They were just wow, because the other quality of books we had in the store were nothing compared qualitatively to this material, even the texture of the book. So he came at a time and it caught people by storm. All the du'at jumped on it. The salafiya even jumped on it, which they're still kind of on it today, borderline. So people like Muhammad Hijab, or although I don't think he's in any way affiliated to Harun Yahya's books, but he and that kind of da'wah people, that kind of Aira kind of da'wah was an extension of the Harun Yahya da'wah. Even though they're not affiliated, but that's what it was, because those people were all about, the scientific miracles of the Quran. And then these kind of people, continued that. The problem is science kind of caught up, not caught up, sorry, moved on, way moved on. And obviously, now that the generation of Muslims in the West has also matured, because that would have been a time that I was a teenager. And I think about it, I'm second generation. Now there's third generation. There's potentially fourth generation, maybe in some places. So people have kind of matured and they've learned that, right, that was actually the wrong way. And a lot of wrong information was disseminated, through this Harun Yahya salvation project. And but surprisingly, nobody knew at the time who was Harun Yahya. But now we do know. It is.
You're teasing me.
It is Adnan Akhtar and his kitties, his harem of kitties. But and he's like this huge tycoon in Turkey that's always been at odds with the authorities, but somehow they've got him now and they've sentenced him for, I don't know exactly what they sentenced him for. I think corruption and all kinds of stuff. And he was kind of really delusional. I think he believed he was the Mahdi, and he had and if you watch any of his kind of things, he was always surrounded by his kind of dolls. Mind you, that is why, if anybody was watching him, was only watching him. And he had them always kind of do these dances and all this kind of stuff. And he believed that, it's fine. They don't need to. I think they were pretty much, in miniskirts and stuff like that all the time. Very dolled up always. And that's it really. And so, and he's been arrested, but he's been sentenced for 1,000 years. I mean, you don't know what's more preposterous. If the judge had said that, I mean, does this judge live in the time of Dhul Qarnayn? The judge thought that, this, I don't know, who is this? Is this Khidr alayhi salam? Yaar koi, I need to give something heavy. It's like the legal clerk must have kind of said to him, make sure you go in a bit firm. He goes, go in firm. 1,000 years. All the biologists and the scientists are like, and the physicists are like, yaar, we need to question time again. Yaar, ye time kya cheez hai? Yaar, ye sala 1,000 years to this poor bastard over here. I mean, how does that even work? So, you don't know what's more of a mockery. I mean, for a judge to say that, can that person even be a judge? I don't know. But anyway, that's, it's all fun and games, people. It's all fun and games. But I guess for Adnan Saab, the party has ended. And the kitties must go home. It's one big shame, the kitties. This bechara over here. So, guys, let's take a look at some of your questions. What's going on? Sheikh, when will you buy Bitcoin? Yeah, I did buy some Bitcoin. I did say that already last week. Is it allowed to visit escorts or forbidden? Thanks. तोबा यार, ये कहाँ से आ जाते हैं ये हरामी. Look at the name he uses to ask this question. He uses the name Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Cha. Not even Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad ibn. Arabiyun. From the Arabi al-Asil, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. And then he sends a super chat of £2. Hello. Is it okay for me to go now? Oh, man. You know what? We need to get a profile picture up here of this Muhammad. Quick. We need to evaluate, just in case we've seen him around outside Warden Park. Ho sakta hai. So, super chats, people. You're doing it. Much love. Sharif Andre Al-Barraq. Whoa. Yeah, just the name is kind of intimidating me. Andre Al-Barraq. It's like one of the classical authors. Mufti Saab, if Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw prophethood in his son Ibrahim, then shouldn't it theoretically be possible for future prophets? Why would Allah stop revelation and stop talking to us? That is a good question. Let me just see this other one before it disappears. Super chat. Idris asks, Salam Mufti, does Ayah 81 of Surah A'raf clearly prohibit homosexual acts? Or is there another understanding of the verse? Story of Lut. Please. Huh? No, sorry. Stay awesome. Acha. Shukran. Mwah. Gio. Right, so Idris, on one hand, is concerned that is it really forbidden? The Muhammad, on the other hand, is concerned about whether if he can still get his happy ending with his massage, and Al-Barraq is concerned about prophethood. Allah. उम्मत पे तेरी आकर अजब वक्त पर आए. Indeed. This one tense time for the ummah. Ummah. Yeah, that reminds me, I never read a poem today. Yeah, let's read. Everything can wait for poetry. Everything can wait. This is from Firaq Gorakhpuri. सर में सौदा भी नहीं, दिल में तमन्ना भी नहीं, लेकिन इस तर के मोहब्बत का भरोसा भी नहीं. Hi. He says that I don't have that craze in my head anymore, and I don't even have the desire in my heart. But this ambition of having left love alone, I can't trust it, This one, it come back, you don't know. एक मुद्दत से तेरी याद भी आए ना हमें, और हम भूल गए हों तुझे, ऐसा भी नहीं. हाय. ये भी सच है कि मोहब्बत पे नहीं मैं मजबूर. ये भी सच है कि मोहब्बत पे नहीं मैं मजबूर. That is true. I have not succumbed to love. Oof. This one, sakht londa. Man, attitude, huh? ये भी सच है कि मोहब्बत पे नहीं मैं मजबूर. ये भी सच है कि तेरा हुस्न कुछ ऐसा भी नहीं. You're taking a dig. Because it's true, I haven't fallen to love, but it's also true that your beauty isn't all that either. Firaq is doing it here. He's doing it. Fitrate husan to maloom hai tujhko hamdam. Hai. Chara hi kya hai baju sabar. So hota bhi Look how he follows it up. He says, Fitrat-e Husn. The nature of beauty is such that we know it. It's known to us. He's saying, you know it too, Hamdam. My dear. Allah. Chara hi kya hai? The only cure to it, the only way you can deal with it, is to have patience. But alas, one cannot be patient. Allah. Says, Fitrat-e Husn to maloom hai tujhko Hamdam. Chara hi kya hai bajuz sabr. So hota bhi. Bajuz is a Persian word which means accept. मुंह से हम अपने बुरा तो नहीं कहते के फिराक. You see, this is what some of my beloveds as well, their attitude. मुंह से, from my own mouth, मुंह से हम अपना बुरा तो नहीं कहते के फिराक. We don't say something bad about him from our own mouths. No. है तेरा दोस्त मगर आदमी अच्छा भी. Says, after all, he's a friend of yours, but this one not nice person, This one not nice. So he says we don't say, but he says it. मुंह से हम अपने बुरा तो नहीं कहते के फिराक है तेरा दोस्त मगर आदमी अच्छा भी. Hi people, hi. Firak Gorakhpuri. A legend in poetry. So, where have we got to? Oh, I forgot. There were some people with some super chats. So, first of all, let's take a look at prophethood. You see, I don't think Ibrahim alayhi salam, I don't think Ibrahim, the son of the prophet, when said Ibrahim alayhi salam, the prophet, I mean Ibrahim, the son of the prophet, who passed away at a young age. I don't think he was going to be a prophet. This statement that had of he lived, he would have been a prophet, if true, is simply a kind of it's hyperbole. It's a hyperbolic statement. As in, he would have been a beacon of guidance as though he is a prophet, like a prophet in that sense. So, first of all, I don't, that's not the case that he would have been a prophet. Now, one may ask, why not? Why does prophecy kind of stop prophethood? And this comes back to the kind of collective consciousness and the epochs that it goes through. You see, there was an age, it's like how Karl Popper had what he called the axial age, which is before Jesus, about 300 years before Jesus, and it spans backwards for about 600 years. That was what he calls the axial age, is what we can term a spiritual awakening, a cognitive awakening age. So it's this age where there's a lot of these kind of awakenings happening around the world. You've got Buddha, Confucius, Socrates, Plato. You've got all of these people. It's not an age of religion, but it's an epoch of this kind of, I'm saying spiritual, but you can use that synonymous with this conscious awakening, this inquisitive conscientiousness. Oof! Toba. Mufti, teri terminology, huh? Right, so, but this kind of inquisitive conscientiousness. Then I would argue from the time of Jesus to the prophet's time, there was an epoch in which religion was concretized. Now, and I'm not just saying this, we can look at this throughout history after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether you like the Prophet Muhammad or dislike him, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, it is a fact of history that no global faith has ever risen in a significant manner. I don't mean a person may have. There's been hundreds, thousands of people who have tried, but no world faith has ever risen. Sikhism is not a world faith. It's restricted to a particular race. And even when you look at it, it's not even, I mean, we do teach it in schools in the UK as one of the 6 major faiths, but it's not a world faith that has ever taken off. And even atheist or agnostic historians will state that as a fact. So even, in one of the interviews when Yuval Harari is being asked, the author of Sapiens, amazing book, Sapiens, he is being asked that, can you envisage a world faith taking off? And he even says no. That no world, after the world faiths like Christianity and Islam, no world faith has ever emerged. And it never will, because that mindset has disappeared from the world. Believe me when I say this, that epoch has long gone. No world faith will ever come to the platform. Islam, whether one agrees with it or not, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the final seal on global religions. So this thing of there being prophets after him, I don't, and we'll discuss a bit about that in a moment about Sayyidina Umar as well, but I don't believe that to be true. Somebody said, yes, it will emerge humanism. Right, okay, so now this is different. Humanism is a philosophy, and I agree with humanism. Humanism is like a tint. So it will just fit on to different faiths and highlight those features, or on no faiths, or on science, or on law, or on anything. It just fits onto things. It's like a tint you have. It is not a world religion. Okay, so and I agree, and I agree that Islam is, I feel, at its heart, humanist. Right, so let's take a look at what were some of the other questions. Right. Layla Majnu, ye kya ho raha hai? Mufti, when is Muslim Gate coming out? Do you have criticisms of Sahih Muslim? Yeah, you see, going back to what I said earlier on, there's a reason why I went for Bukhari. Because it's become the symbol of denouncing the legacy of Islam as promoted by the Salafiyya, the Wahhabiyya. This is why I took it apart. Okay. Why not go for Abu Dawood or Tirmidhi? It's not that you can't, but it's not the icon. It's not the. This was, if you're going to storm the Capitol, you have to grab the bull by the horns. Okay, this was, and Bukhari is that fortress, the impenetrable fortress. But as a wise man once said, what's that quote from Game of Thrones? When he says impenetrable fortress. you I'll let you check it out. You give me 10 strong men, and exactly. So people, Right. The other question on the super chat, somebody said, can you respond to it? Yes, of course. Where did it go? Why would Allah stop revelation? So it's not about revelation. It's interesting. It's interesting, by the way. The Prophet didn't say that revelation per se ends, but revelation in its formal manner as a religion ends. And the Prophet actually said that it continues through kind of like either dreams or visions, which dreams, it's interesting, is linked to the unconscious. That people at an unconscious level will still be connected to potential revelatory intuitions. But those intuitions, those signals, those things that they see is not for every, it's just for them. So you might experience something that can help you, but it's not a religion. It's not to start preaching in that way. So, and that I find that a very fascinating hadith that the Prophet said, that revelation stops except in except in dreams, or whether one wants to see as visions, but dreams. And it's interesting that tying that in with the unconscious. When the Prophet, right, I gotta get this back up. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, it didn't sound like there was an emphasis during his time to preserve the Quran in writing. Hadiths claim it was a difficult feat. The Quran does speak of itself within itself. My question to you, does the Quran declare itself a revelation for all times? Does the language of the Quran lend itself towards universal use of temporal contextual? Rami is doing it. That's a PhD right there. That's just, that's it. You're done now. There's nothing more to do in life. I've answered this. You see, there's just so much there. I'll take a stab at it. You see, yes, the Quran does refer to itself within itself. It speaks about inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyyan, and in many, do they not afala yatadabbarun al-Quran, and do they not ponder over it, and in many countless references to itself within itself. That is true. It was not written down during the Prophet's time. That's true as well. It was written, but not as a book form. That is true. So people were writing it on, on leather, on whatever they could write on. Sometimes some people wrote on bones, they scraped things on, etched into it, onto stone. I don't know if they were using, I don't think they were using papyri at that time, but mainly it would have been the hide of certain animals that would be used as a scroll, or for writing script. So people were writing it, but it wasn't collected as a whole. So yeah. Now the question is, why wasn't it collected as a book? I would feel that, look, in spite of these questions, the Quran has stood the test of time. It is here today. And yes, now there's a difference of how you look at it. I would say that the fact that the Quran wasn't all collected as a book was because the Quran was dynamic in its nature, that it allowed certain substitutable variations, like certain words or certain vowels or certain things which didn't change the revelatory meaning. And in the Prophet's lifetime, that was allowed. So yes, and for it to be 3D and dynamic, it couldn't be this written book. Anzalnahu, that we revealed it, تَجْعَلُونَهُ قَرَاطِيس. We revealed it, that this book, this, you see, kitab isn't, you see, because kitab in Arabic means book, so when the Quran says kitab, you automatically assume book, but there it actually means scripture, because it wasn't a book. So this scripture, we revealed it, it's you who place it on paper or write it down. Because there is this, see, when you lock something in, there's a part of the spirit evaporates. I have a whole mind trap with Dr. Khalil Andani on this. Do check it out. I go into much more detail there. I hope that helps. Mufti Sab, okay, I've answered that. The homosexuality, I have a video on Idris on the ruling of homosexuality in Islam. Do watch it. In that video, I do go through the detail. It is true, there is nothing in the Quran that explicitly prohibits, just targets homosexuality explicitly. So it may implicitly target it. So either under, lewd actions, promiscuous actions, just generic kind of headings, or one may say it's an indirect prohibition narratologically by mentioning the story of Lut. Now, that's in its own place, but if one was to say, is there direct, like the way Allah says, if a thief does this, then do this, chop the hand of the thief, or is there a direct prohibition of homosexuality like that? There isn't no explicit speech like that in the Quran. Most Muslims did and do understand homosexuality to be haram. Some Muslims did disagree with that. The minority, but they did disagree, and they felt that the Quran didn't. In fact, they argued that, their point was that the Quran permitted homosexuality. Obviously, they were a minority. That said, it was something that was quite widespread historically, but not the homosexuality of today. It was more the kind of sexual opportunity stroke fluidity of the past. So basically, kind of like the every holds a kind of philosophy that people had. And so it wasn't kind of today, it's more a lifestyle choice, and it defines your identity. And if a person is gay, he finds women rather detestable. And or if a woman is lesbian, she will, oh my god, men are disgusting. It wasn't quite like this in the past. It was just kind of fluid. So they probably did have homosexual relations, but they also had families and had children, and so it was a lot like that. And I've got a whole detailed video explaining that a diverse history, so it's worth watching. But for the most part, Muslims did, as far as the Sharia books were concerned, they did prohibit it. And it wasn't prohibited because, so people say it was prohibited because of sodomy. I suppose many scholars did say that. And that's one way of getting out of it, I suppose, because they said, well, sodomy is always prohibited. It was prohibited, in my understanding, to kind of force people into marrying, to procreate, to set up a society, because people weren't prepared to undertake the responsibility. So in order to force them to undertake it, it had to prohibit other opportunities. And it obviously prohibited just general sexual liaisons and so on. And this fell under that. That's my understanding of it. Cool. Mufti, would you recommend studying at Darul Mustafa in Yemen or Al Azhar? Right. So now, Darul Mustafa, is that the one in Tamim, right? So, I'm sorry, Tanim. Right. I to be honest, I haven't heard much about that institute or these institutes in years. So I don't really know what to advise you to study if you want to go to Yemen. Yemen right now is not a very stable location, so I don't think it would be very wise going there, and you'd probably just be stuck. Al Azhar is still interesting. Yeah, one could go to Al Azhar. Fair enough. Egypt is still quite active if you want to study. It's just the landscape is all changing now, isn't it? It's very interesting. I mean, one could study here. I mean, if you wanted, you could study locally, or get maybe 2 years out the way, 3 years out the way, then maybe do a year or two abroad in some of these kind of institutes, ma'hads, or different things, or even maybe if you've done a certain amount of studies here, maybe just take 3 months out and then come back, and then periodically I did suggest to one person that, look, why don't you because he had learned a certain amount already and done a certain amount of studies, and I said, well, why don't you study abroad for 3 months, come back here, catch up with your work and your money, and then go to a different location for 3 months and come back, and then different location. And what you're actually doing is enhancing your life's experiences, because you're staying in different locations of the world, you're encountering different people. I mean, wow, it's something you'll remember later on. But it's hard because the whole landscape is changing now. So I don't know what to advise. It's a bit of a tricky one. Yeah, and some of these places, the problem is you go to them and you might come out just one of them. And that's another no-no. You go to a madrasa and you come out as one of these Molanas, like, oh, what to do, huh? What to do? Do. As the Tabligis, they used to have their bayans. Yeah, so one of them, whilst he's giving the bayan, they used to have, like, in different corners of the mosque, people translating. So they had, the Tabligis, they had this kind of slogan about their effort, that yaar, करते करते मरेंगे और मरते मरते करेंगे. So and the person translating it, he says, do die, die do. Do die, die do. That's the क्या करें, what to do die do. So people, let's see what's going on. Zebaji says, yes, they are. It's all about who dare to love. Wah, wah, wah. Indeed. So, what is going on? I like... What do you think about your naughty meme? Speaking about that, I did have... was it over...
I know your pain. I know you're hurt.
Right, so
we
actually...
had an election
this
that was
is a Trump
stolen
go home
from us. It was a landslide election.
I had this... this is actually something interesting. I was watching this. It's if you want to check it out on a side note, but it was speaking about the Super Mario effect of learning. And what it was saying, basically, in essence, was that if something is less made to look as if something has no negativity associated with it, with its learning, it's actually much easier. Like, research shows that it's easier to learn. So people tend to learn it better. So if they saw it as a game, they actually learn it better than if there's some win or lose associated with it. I mean, like, imagine they were losing money, or they're going to get in trouble, or they have to do it. They actually learn it less effectively. I found that very fascinating. But the actual thing I wanted to show you was here. This was Pogba. Once again, somebody sent this to me.
Remember that you're blessed.
giving some advice.
Always.
Always.
Remember where you come from
100%
and where
roots.
you're going.
The way you're going. 3 main goals, right?
Exactly. I give you just no religious, not just normal goals.
Just general life goals.
General.
That's what it's about, man.
And remember that you're healthy. And remember the people that they're not healthy.
Exactly.
So there's always worse than us.
And always remember, don't be naughty.
There you go.
Naughty.
Peace out, people.
Right, so there you go. That's just an example. Somebody had sent that to me just a couple of days ago, so I thought I'd share it. I love it. I mean, and absolutely, it's amazing, isn't it? This day and age, you say something, and where it goes. Wah, wah, wah. Kya baat hai, kya baat. Right, another announcement that Dr. Abdul Majid, I had reached out to him following his reply to my Bukhari Gate. I did see he'd made a video saying an invitation accepted. And I'd reached out to him saying, look, this month, let's have a mind trap. Come on, mind trap. Let's have a chat, yaar. Maza aayega. We'll chat. Love to talk. So he has accepted. He said, cool. I messaged him saying, how does next week, Thursday, sound? And he said, yep, that sounds good. So inshallah, I did say Wednesday, Thursday. What do you think? So I'm saying Thursday. He was kind of cool with both. So next week, Thursday, we should have the Mind Trap people. Check it out. I'll be having a word with, I'll be having a discussion, a dialogue with our beloved guest, Dr. Abdul Majid Sahib. I did watch, he made another video with that. So with the invitation somebody sent me, there was another video that came up with it. And it was his reply to my Bukhari Gate with more ilmi features, more, because the first video, I could see he's speaking about my comments saying that, look, Abu Layth said this, and, he kind of was mocking my thing and blah, blah, blah. And in this, he's presenting more of an ilmi approach. He's trying to answer my questions on why Bukhari Gate and what does he say about frabri? Frabri, to fabricate. To fabricate. And he speaks about some examples of hadith that I choose. Only one example he uses, and then he goes into the virtues of Bukhari. I wasn't sure why he was being very sarcastic in a lot of the things, but chalo, it's, each their own. I think it'll be very interesting. It'll be very fun. He kept saying, all my fans are my worshippers and stuff like this, and my worshippers and blah, 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 and how I'm a liar and I'm all this kind of stuff. And I did feel that, look, I don't, chalo yaar, aap keh lijiye, you're, if it makes you happy, no problem. So cool. I look forward to it, Dr. Saab, and next week it is. He did mention about some of, I think some of people in the comments of my meetup or something, or in YouTube. I don't know where exactly he was referring to, but he said some of my followers are giving him a hard time. So I was going to say that, they were telling him to get lost or something. I can tell you, Dr. Saab, I've not seen any of these people speak like that to you. It's definitely not my style to say to people, get lost and stuff like this. Yes, I have my joke and a laugh in a place, but, I've been, you're senior in age, and I've welcomed you to a discussion. I'm glad you're happy to have that. And people, please don't be disrespectful like that. This is not how to behave. But yes, I look forward to it. We'll discuss it then. Bukhari, all this drama, what is going on? Yeah, Bukhari Gate. So long. All right. So now getting back to Usman Mahmood has sent a super chat. Salam, sir. Can you Please shout out your superfan, Atiq Irfan, professional serial kisser. Atiq, you're doing it. So, let's see, what are the super chat? Mahmoud Abdul Baqi has sent in a question. You're doing it with the super chat. Are women allowed to lead prayers? you. Yeah. Kahora. These are the mosques we're all looking for. There's got to be an imamat competition. Who is the best, talent. Right, can women lead prayer, make adhan, give khutbah, etc.? They can, okay. Does it generally happen? No. And the reasons, I think, are quite obvious. These aren't men, very visual creatures, But one could say, what if the woman is not physically appealing then? One, I counter my own arguments. Yaar, phas jata hu, I get stuck. It's a good point, actually. What if one could argue that, but then one could argue attraction is subjective. Every point. Punto. So, it's not haram, though. I don't believe it's haram. I don't believe it's invalid for a woman to lead the prayer. Or for her to give a khutbah or to be the imam. But generally it isn't done, and it's quite honestly not done for those reasons, because it would just become a thing. They don't want to make a thing out of it. It's like everybody's trying to. It's the first time everybody's trying to make front row. Like, yar, pehli saf, yar, saful awwal. Do you know the ajr for being in the saful awwal? It's like, so yeah, but it is definitely, in my understanding, not invalid to do so. Let's take a look at some of the Facebook questions as well. Fushi saying you can literally watch it. I don't know what that's about. There's a talk that Mufti has already on this topic on tattoos. I do. Please do go watch that. Right, somebody is saying, Ashar, you should be able to articulate your POV. Huh? Mustalahat mein kuch. There's a tadarub, talatum. Okay, so the mustalahat, the terminologies. Now let's go down to some of the latest comments here. Mufti, isn't there a hadith which says the majority of my ummah doesn't agree on error? Does it mean we are doomed if we follow minority opinions? Travosky Sandar. You're doing it. That's a good question. That isn't there a hadith that states, and I'll tell you the hadith. You thought I wouldn't know the hadith. لا تجتمع أمتي على الضلالة. This hadith is unfortunately a weak hadith. Although its meaning is kind of valid, that the entire ummah will not agree so upon misguidance. So that means Islam only means this in the world. There is no other understanding, not a single person disagreeing on that matter. That won't be the case. I do accept that in terms of understanding, that's a valid understanding, and that never happens in matters really that are controversial. I mean, can you name me something that the ummah has agreed upon a misguidance? That the entire, every single... So I don't think that's ever happened. So even though the hadith is not sahih, I can accept it as a principle, as a subjective biased principle, but I would argue it's also objectively true from a Muslim viewpoint, that Muslims have never agreed on something which they find to be in clash with Islam. All right, so let's take a look at some of the... Right, now, what does this in... What's going on? Mufti, what about working as a recruiter for some of the jobs which one could recruit is banking, but one could possibly steer clear of these jobs should one rather should one work for such a company? Rather, people, rather. One may work for such a company. Indeed, indeed. These things are not haram in my understanding. Mufti, why you called yourself Maliki? That's a good question. Because, I'm sorry, I was just reading one of the other comments. Okay, people, behave in the comments, behave. And if any of them are trying to be rude to the mods, you can block them. Okay, so, right, why call myself Maliki? That's a good question. It's because I am Maliki. You see, in Islam, there were understandings of Islam that were inherited, and they have then how you practice Islam, how you pray, how you do things, your way of looking at your kind of lens. Not necessarily, you see, the lens doesn't mean that the view is always the same, because you and your geographical location will always change. And it will change temporally as well. So what we're talking about is the lens is the same. So in the school of Medina, it was about placing the Quran centrally, and then the inherited practice of Medina took precedence, and reason was always vital in determining that. Hence, when the hadith is there and Imam Malik in the Mudawwana says about the dog and the bowl and this impurity, very famous hadith, Imam Malik says, قد جاء هذا الخبر لا ندري ما حقيقته. We don't know what it's on about. كيف يؤكل صيده. He says, يؤكل صيده فكيف يكره لعابه. How can something that this dog hunts be halal and yet its saliva be impermissible? That doesn't make any sense. See, reason was a very important point. Now, this manhaj, this way of looking, was kind of set out by the scholars of Medina, vocalized by Imam Malik. Obviously, he learnt it from his teachers, who learnt it from their teachers, who would have been the children of the companions, who learnt it from the companion, who learnt it from the Prophet. So this is why, and that tradition then kind of dispersed throughout the globe. There were many schools that belonged to the school of Medina, all adding their interesting takes on it over time, taking a look at things, questioning narratives. You had right throughout the ages, this was the same school that was the first school to expand on maqasid al-sharia, that the sharia's objectives, and if the objectives are not being met, then that's a problem. You need to make sure that you meet the objectives. The maqasid al-sharia really is a Maliki thing. It's right from whether it's going to be right back then a Shatibi from Al-Andalus coming right down to Sheikh Halal al-Fasi or Sheikh Ibn Ashur or the Malikiya today. This is Maliki, or whether it's going to be the Nawazil challenging the fatwa of the day and age, where benefit, where maslaha, where welfare is looked at. So whether it was going to be Abu al-Qasim al-Burzuli saying that we need to change the capital punishments of his day and age 700 years ago into financial penalties, or whether it was going to be his great grandson Ibn Ardun, who said about women's inheritance needs to be 50%. And the wife's inheritance is 50%, giving that ruling. I mean, so this is nothing new. There's a legacy of challenging. Now, one could say when Abul Qasim al-Burzuli gave that fatwa of changing the capital punishments, and many Maliki after him, one could say, well, Imam Malik never gave it. Of course he didn't. We're not just, you see, it's a way of thinking. You have a kind of lens. It's like we look through this, we're wearing a particular kind of set of glasses. It doesn't mean what we look at will always be the same. We will look at things from different perspectives, different altitudes, from different timescales. But that lens is similar. So yes, it does go back to the school of Medina and the city of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's something we pride ourselves on. Allah. Not like these other people, whether it's going back to Kufa or going back to a different city, or like some going back to Najd. The worst of places, just a barren desert. Right? So it's not going back there, it's going back to the city of the Prophet. Allahu Akbar. So that's why I'm a Maliki. You know, I had I mean, I feel this is fine to say. It's not in any negative light, but I had Sheikh Abdullah Hamid Ali send me a message which was parts of it were reasonably polite, and parts of it were quite challenging in saying, look, you know, he was saying that, look, on certain things I could make sense, like let's say, but why is it I deny the evil eye? And then if that's the case, and I think this is an interesting question because many people may ask this, why is it if I deny the evil eye, then I still associate and allude to scholars like Ibn Ashur or Imam Malik in the past who may have accepted the evil eye? So, and I answered him by saying, look, first of all, I answer this in my video, but fair enough, if you still, you know, if it didn't make sense to you there, you see, the evil eye was something that was the science of the day and age. And you can watch my video. I explain how people thought the eye worked. They believed in extramission. So to them, this was how biology works. This was how the eye works. They thought the eye shoots out rays. Now, actually, it's only very recently we've discovered that actually the eye works through intromission. And hence historical eye, because the biology and science, if we want to call it science, science simply means the way, their understanding of how the world works and how biology works. They believed that was how eyes work. So it wasn't about religion to them, because the evil eye is not mentioned anywhere in the Quran. It was that this is how biology works. This is how the eye works. So now you know that's not the case. So, for example, many people in the past thought that, you know, if you went 1,000 years ago, or, you know, and even pre-Islam and into early Islam, I'm not speaking about the Prophet, but scholars and just medical doctors of that day and age, or philosophers, believed that the heart was what you thought with, that the thinking didn't happen up there, it happened in the heart. Now, that's, you know, that was how they thought the biology of the day and age worked. Some scholars back then didn't believe in that. They believed that the brain was the seat of cognition, but a common perception, biological perception, was that the heart was the seat of cognition. So it's not about, you know, like one could say, like if you found, let's say, a quote from Imam Malik thinking that the heart was the seat of cognition, that's where thinking took place. That doesn't mean, oh my God, you know, this is now an Islamic viewpoint. It's just how their understanding of biology was. In that day and age, this was a common understanding in the world, where even if you're a non-Muslim, many, you know, you would have believed things like that. So you don't take your science from them. How does the eye work? Is it extramission, intramission? You don't need to take that from Imam Bukhari or Imam Malik or something. So yeah, I hope that's that answers that question for many people. Cool. Let's go on. All right. Mufti Abu Layth, your views on influential people in history that could be prophets, e.g. Socrates, Plato, Buddha. Yeah, I believe these people could have been prophets. I mean, not all of them, but I believe like the Buddha could have been a prophet. I believe Socrates could have been a prophet. In fact, his whole thing is quite prophetic. Confucius could have been. I don't. What I'm saying is that we just don't know. Zarathustra could have been a prophet. Yeah, we just don't know. Many Hindu, figures could have they could have been prophets. I mean, we just obviously Islam just doesn't mention them. All right, so. Opinion on Abdurrahman Hassan. He seems very intelligent, mashallah. Why is he stuck in this dogmatism? You see, there's a difference between, being clever at something and being a person of reason. These are not necessarily the same thing. I mean, there may be an overlap in some cases, but they're not necessarily the same. So just like you could get somebody that doesn't have thinking. If you take thinking, it has different layers to it. This is one of the structures that is presented throughout the educational spectrum. So you would have lower order thinking skills and you have higher order thinking skills. So lower order thinking skills are just knowledge and understanding. So you know something that you can reiterate and you can explain it. And these are lower order thinking skills. Higher order thinking skills are not actually so much about just pieces of information. So you will have it will involve things like there's analysis, application, synthesis, and creation. Now, these are higher order thinking skills. So somebody like Abdurrahman Hassan, I would understand him, and it's not just him personally, because I haven't studied him personally. The 1-2 clips of his I have seen. Much of the Salafi scene, maybe not everybody in the Salafi scene, but much of the Salafi scene or that dogmatism scene, whoever you find dogmatic, they are people of lower order thinking skills. They may be very clever, like as in they can know a lot of stuff. So, I can memorize and I can learn and I can explain what I've learnt. But can I apply this to different scenarios? Can I analyze it? Can I evaluate it? Can I synthesize it? Can I create new based on? These are all higher order thinking skills. And even though I'm not saying these people have no higher order thinking skills, everybody may have some, but they just may generally not be people of higher order thinking skills. So I'm not saying never in their life. They may have one time in their life done, so it doesn't mean that you've never had a creative thought. But for the most part, that's not how your brain works. So that's the thing with these people. So when you're looking at someone and thinking, oh, he can reiterate a lot of things. Zakir Naik, he can man's a machine in just saying page number this, page number this, 3, volume 3, page 4, line, paragraph 2. The guy's a computer. He's a database of just data, of information. But and this, this is another thing. This is why also sometimes you get people who might, and this isn't a diss at people, but let's say they might be really good. Like Dr. Zakir Naik is a doctor, and so on many occasions you get doctors who become, this is a good archetypal example. You can make it to such a profession, but you're not necessarily creative in thought or analytical in thought. You're just taught how to measure certain symptoms and refer to certain things. So this is why on many occasions, and I don't mean to be, I have known some medical people who have been very intelligent and, very, let's say, think out of the box, but I've also known many doctors who, they won't come, they're not actually that, you're quite surprised that how is this, and that's because you associate a doctor with, somebody who's like a genius, but it's not actually the case. It's like Dr. Zakir Naik is another typical example. You just have to, it's like what they call ratta. You just have to learn something, rote learning enough to say and pass the exam. It's not like philosophy, for example. You can't just, it's not rote learning. So yeah, that's my analysis of these dogmatists. Somebody said, I agree less with Zakir Naik lately, but I still love the guy. Abe yaar, we love them all. We love you all. Love you, yaar. Go home. Be safe. We love you, yaar. It's just the damage they do to Islam is the problem. Like Zakir Naik has done so much damage to the scientific confrontation with Islam under the pretense of I'm a medical doctor. The amount of nuqsan, the amount of harm that he has caused Islam by this license, that before destroying, as the Salaf wa Salih would say, घुसाने से पहले परमिशन लेनी चाहिए. لا تدخل إلا بإذن. This is do not enter except with permission. So this Zakir Naik, I'm a medical doctor. Thank you very much. Brother has asked a beautiful question, the truth and the untruth. And so, in all this truth, untruth, Islam was getting it for free. This was the problem. So it's not these people, it's the damage they've done to Islam. Right, now speaking of dogmatism and weird kind of beliefs, we go to
the word of positivity, please. Something positive.
Right. So this is a hadith that I just want to share. Speaking of beliefs, this is another hadith from Sahih Bukhari, and it's describing the night journey. Okay, so it's this is also one of the hadith that I have problematized, by the way, in my Bukhari gate. But here the interesting part is that as the description gets so colorful and everything that's happening on this night journey, and by the way, it's a complete chaotic, everything is all over the place. This is happening here, that's happening there. Oh, no, it isn't in this riwayah. Yes, it is. But put that aside. The colorful part suddenly turns into 4K as it describes the Prophet reaching the end of creation, Sidratul Muntaha. Oof. And then people, the Lord, Jabbar, the Lord, Allah, draws close But he doesn't just draw close. It says, Wadan al-Jabbar. He drew close. Rabbul Izzah. The Lord, the Almighty, draws close. Fatadalla. Then the Lord just hanged in front of the Prophet. And it's like, huh? Yes, surah ka ho raha hai. What is this? And I'm not, so, un momento. And I'm not making this up. This is in Bukhari. But this, and here's the definition. You can see here the definition, those of you that read Arabic. One of the examples often given is about grapes hanging, just kind of like, just hanging or something. And it comes from the root word of the dal, which is the kind of bucket, if you like, or pail that they would use to collect water from a well, and they would drop it and it would just hang in the well. And that's where this root comes from, dalu, tadalla, to kind of like hang like this bucket of water, often used for things like grapes. Now, you can see that there. Now, there's Toba. I'm not the one giving it that definition there. That's in the dictionary. It says to be dangling, right? So you can see that right there. Right? And this is not just, I'm not saying this. This is in our beloved Bukhari. It's that same hadith which I've already gone through part of it in Bukhari Gate, but this is the more colorful part a little later on, and you can see it there. It's that same hadith 7517, and it mentions Wadan al-Jabbar Rabbul Izzah Fatadalla, and then he hanged in front of, or Toba, how am I say, dangled in front of the Prophet. And I'm not the first person to problematize this. Toba, Gustakh Akiya Kitte Dalariya. This has been highly criticized by many scholars of Islam. Khattabi said about this that this whole book, which book? Bukhari. He said this whole book hasn't brought a more shockingly obscene, ashna wa absha sentence than this sentence in this hadith. Needless to say, they considered this fabricated. People like the Maliki, Abdul Haq al-Ishbili, saying obviously these people lack knowledge of hadith. The narrators, Ibn Hazm and others, all problematized. Even Ibn al-Qayyim saying that there was numerous mistakes in this hadith, and this obviously being one of them. But, Ibn Hajar, Ibn Hajar is Ibn Hajar. That's how you want, if ever in history somebody has tried to, Zara Utana, has tried to lift the ego, you dirty mind, try to lift the ego of someone. It has been Ibn Hajar and his beloved attempts with Sahih Bukhari. Wallahi. Oh! The man tried. He tries in his commentary. He tries. You gotta get it. That's like, who says romance is dead, huh? Who says... That's how you'd want someone to defend you, huh? Someone. So he really does try. He tries, and then even he says, "Look, it's like I've caught my my royal jewels in a vice here." But he does still, the man tries, he tries. He goes in, he tries hard to apologize. He says, Shama kijiye Prabhu, Shama, Shama. But yeah, so this is the problem with some of these absurd, ridiculous hadith. And obviously the added problem of the Salafi Wahhabi dawah of saying whenever you find a hadith describing God, you can just, that is your belief of God then. You think, yeah, I understood from your Aqidah before that God had multiple eyes or whatever. Okay, he had 2 right hands, 2 fingers, he laughs, had teeth, maybe according to some, had a back, had half a leg, 1 foot, and he used to run around and come down. But now he hangs and dangles. Yeah, you seriously need to work on the Aqidah department. You need to purge that damn thing and start it again from zero. This is totally, that is totally unacceptable. Now, people may say that, but this verse is used about angels. You know, you may say, oh, that didn't this happen in the vision of the Prophet when he saw the angel Jibril hang suddenly before him and he got shocked and scared? Fine. That's not a problem. You know, if in a vision, if the Prophet saw an angel kind of hang in front of him and it shocked him, if that refers to the Prophet there, let's say, now there's other interpretations, fine, but not God. You see, God doesn't just hang in front of people or dangle like a grape. This toha. Pop hota hai, pop. This one, no nice, this one. So people, what I would say is this is utterly unacceptable, and it is indicative and reflective of the greater problem with the Salafi creed. You know, because this is the problem. When you picture God to be this kind of goblin, that astaghfirullah, toba, this kind of deformed kind of being, this kind of like, I mean, how are people meant to, like, how do you worship that? It's like, so exactly, because God has no form. He's beyond forms. He's beyond words. He's not like, he doesn't have 2 right hands and only 2 fingers and a bunch of teeth and 1 leg, and he doesn't dangle and hang, and this is just unacceptable. Okay, so I thought I'd share that because it was quite interesting, and obviously because it's from my beloved my Bukhari. Bukhar aayega magar Bukhari nahi aayegi, Bukhari. So I thought that would be, you know, something interesting. But cool, people. Yeah, because it does give a picture of a disabled God. Astaghfirullah, you know, like, and that's not subhanahu wa ta'ala amma yasifun. This is why people, you have to be wary of these kind of weird beliefs. And to be honest, the 21st century is seeing a death of this. It's embarrassing to believe in stuff like that anyway, in this day and age. You know, to say I believe in this, it's like everybody else in the room is like, I don't believe in that. That's just, do you really? Oh, I'll just go stand over there. So yeah. Yeah, so somebody said Fatadalla is in Surah Najm. Yes, but it's not talking about God. I'm not saying the verb is a bad verb in Arabic. Having 2 fingers is not a bad thing in the world. It's a problem when you say God has 2 fingers. You know, hanging people, you could say he, I don't know, was hanging off the wall. Fine. You could say the bucket was hanging in the well, and the grape was hanging off the tree. The word hanging and dangling is not a problem as a verb. The problem is when you say God does that. Okay, this one, acha, cha. Acha, so sasura problem yahan hai कि God, you can't bring God into this kind of this hanging affair. So this is why it's important. Yeah, it is it's embarrassing. Honestly, I say this stuff because it's embarrassing. You read this, and this is why it's important to know that, look, yes, we do respect all books of hadith, but we treat each hadith on its own merits. If the hadith is problematic, if it clashes with reason, clashes with the Quran, or with the uproots an Islamic principle, the hadith is not acceptable. It is inadmissible. That's the teaching according to the school of Medina, and that's according to many scholars of hadith, even if they didn't practice it. Somebody said, have Javed Ghamidi Saab on Mind Trap. Yeah, I would love to. Let me try and see if we can make that happen. It would be great if we could do that. But I don't know if you'll accept it. I don't know if I'm a big enough fish now for, what it is. I don't think these are my personal, real talk. Yeah, real talk. Yeah, real talk. Real. I think Javed Ghamidi Saab is, this is my personal opinion. I think he's a very down-to-earth person. Very obviously, he's a man of reason, but he's very reasonable and down to earth. This is what I think. However, I feel that maybe it's the team around him, or that there's a lot of this kind of Hazratism. This kind of I don't know, like misplaced overprotective jealousy kind of thing. There's a lot of that, and people don't really like, they won't allow you to. I think that those kind of people don't maybe like me, or maybe they don't mind me, like they don't mind my opinions, because obviously they're very similar to Javed Ghamidi Saab's opinions, but maybe they feel insecure. That what if, for example, these people collaborate, and then, because I do my stuff in English, he never speaks in English. What if, I don't know, his audience comes to me instead of him? Because obviously that high level of Urdu, let's say in the United States, who, a tiny select amount of people speak like that. So maybe there's a fear that, this kind of insecurity. This is real talk. I'm just being honest. I think Javed Ghamidi Saab himself would be a lovely, very grounded, down to earth, kind of humble person. That's my person. No, I don't think it's him, but I do feel that people around him are not very. I think that there's a lot of that kind of cultish mentality around him. Which does happen. It happens everywhere. It does. It happens. I get that, but it's a problem when it's the people very around. Like, you can understand if it's some fans, but when it's the team around you, it's a problem, because you see, the team around you are the people that will then interact with other people, other scholars, it's like, obviously, like now I'm interacting. Javed Ghamidi Saab's not gonna be WhatsApping me. I'm gonna be speaking to his liaisons, and if they're gonna be very like that, this is the kind of impression it's gonna leave with me. It's gonna leave a okay, this on, so this, I'm just real talk. That's the kind of impression I get. There's nothing new there. That impression is with most Maulanas. It is with most Pir Saabs. Most, you try to get it. I tried to once hook up with Sheikh Yaqubi, I was flying, I was in Rabat in Morocco, and he was residing in Rabat. So I messaged, someone that was his rep, and he happened to be there at that time. So I said, look, I tell you what, I'd love to kind of meet him and greet him, meet and greet the man. Why not? And, it'd be great. And it was like there was more protocol than if I tried to meet the king of Morocco. It was like, I'm serious. I mean, it was such a ridiculous protocol that it disgusted me. Honestly, I'm not joking. And I don't think, you see, in his case, Sheikh Yaqubi's case, he's young, you see. I don't think he's oblivious to it. I don't think this is happening without him knowing. I think whether these people are overdoing it, and he may not be, but I think he's definitely aware of the stuff. So in that case, they did all this protocol, and then they said, all right, fine, come at this time, and this, and I was on my way, and I had a friend with me, and they said, well, I said, we're on our way. I said, oh, wait a minute, we? Who's we? I said, me and my friend. Oh, no, I didn't clear the friend. The friend doesn't have clearance. I thought clearance. I'm sorry. Are we going on? Is this the Mi'raj? Is this Sidrat al-Muntaha? What clearance is this? Do I need a COVID certificate? Obviously, this was way before COVID, but this kind of thing. No. Your friend can't come in. He can wait in the car. I thought, bah. I said you could. Mashallah. Okay. I said, mashallah, you can obviously, Sheikh Yaqubi can use his own time wisely. I'll go make use of my time. So it's not new meeting this kind of thing with other, peas and these kind of mashaykh, but it was just surprising to see it around Ghamidi Saab, because I just didn't expect it around him. So I was kind of a bit, taken aback because when he came to the UK, I did actually try very hard to meet him. And the block was incredible. I mean, it was like, no time at all for you. It was like, we won't see you anywhere. We won't do, it's like very, very, they did say you can purchase a ticket and attend his event, but, it was and I was quite surprised actually. Wow. I didn't expect that kind of, so yeah, but it is what it is, people. So I don't know if that will happen, but cool. Let's move on. Right. What somebody said Dr. Shehzad was on. Yeah, Dr. Shehzad, but I kind of got in touch with Dr. Shehzad independently. And he's not, even though he's close to Ghamidi Saab but he's not part of his managing team. He's kind of just separate, as in he's close to him ideologically and as a student, but he lives in Pakistan and Ghamidi Saab lives in America. So he's not involved in that kind of managing Ghamidi Saab. He's just a very close person to him who's benefited. And he was great. To be fair, Dr. Shehzad has been great. I want to say that. I'm personally in touch with. I've messaged him on a couple of occasions to get confirmation of what Ghamidi Saab believes. He's been very prompt. Like sometimes I will be researching something and I might message some of Ghamidi Saab's team. And I might just say, look, what does Ghamidi Saab believe on these matters? God forbid that they give a straight answer. They never give me an answer. They never give a straight answer to me ever. Like they just don't. They just like fob me off always. But Dr. Shehzad, if I message him straight away, as soon as he sees it, he just responds, yes, that's what he believes. He told me this personally, or no. He can keep it brief, but he's very much love and respect to Dr. Shehzad Salim. Right. Right. All right. So what is going on, people? Mufti, what are your thoughts on Dili Hussein? Acha, 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 acha. Dil you say, na? My thoughts on him are as good as my thoughts on this kung fu technique by the brother. So, yeah. People like that, you see, to be honest with you, from what I know, he is an extremist. He is a hardcore member of Hizb ut-Tahrir, which is a cancer for this ummah, believing in just governing, political power. You should do military coups in Muslim countries. And even though I think he's toned down a lot of that, because nowadays people ain't prepared to accept that. But from what I know of him, very sympathetic to the Osama bin Laden kind of clique and stuff like that. And I'm not saying this himself from what I've read a couple of years back, because a couple of years back we had a bit of a kind of clash online on Facebook. His own posts were saying things like that's one of his ideal figures was Osama bin Laden. He may have hidden that post now because of obviously, you see, the zeitgeist has changed now. So these extremists, the thing with them is they have to soften down their tone because they're not going to be, you see, the younger generation don't buy that kind of nonsense. So now I don't know whether he openly speaks as much, but that's the problem. If somebody is like that, you have to be wary. Same thing with all of this, this HT kind of, or anybody who's just after political, global domination. Anybody who tells you that we need to take over the world. Alarm bells should be ringing. Acha, take over the world. Acha. So that's the problem. Anybody who says that to you, we need to take over the world. Say, अच्छा मियाँ Yusuf. आप बैठिए हुजूर बैठिए. So yeah, Bro Haji on Mind Trap. Oh, that would be good. I think maybe Bro Haji might come on. You see, I sympathize with Bro Haji because I really like him. I have much love for Bro Haji. We disagree, theologically, ideologically, but he's a great guy. Really gel well with his personality. I can understand, you see, if Bro Haji comes on Mind Trap, he might get a hell of a lot of slack from people. Now, I would love for him to come on, but let's see, because I don't know, is that the kind of heat he's, to him, it might just be unnecessary heat. Like, I don't need that heat. So, but it's a shame that, you see, cults work like that. That you can't even talk to someone. It's like, you see, you don't need to agree with them, but if I talk to you, I get blacklisted. The power. But that would be great. Maybe he will come on. I will speak to him, inshallah. Whoever kills the soul, what's that about? Bring Saad Taslim on. Okay, I've never really reached out to Saad Taslim. Sure, why not? I'm happy to bring. If there's people you think are great candidates, my simple criteria is two: that they are interesting and that they are interested. This criteria works in many walks of life. So interesting and interested. Okay, so if they are, let's go with it. Let's roll with it. So if you know any of these people, you're in touch with them, you can ask them, look, are they happy to come on? I feel a huge problem is this blacklisting mentality. They're a bit afraid that other people will blacklist them. It's so dumb. It's like schoolyard mentality, oh, you talk to him, not my friend. Oh, I'm not your friend. I don't like him. No friend. I'm friend. How old are you again? I'm 52. Huh? Acha. Acha. How old are you? Acha. 47. Acha. How old are you? 38. This is the mentality of imams and mashayikh today. Seriously. I've said to people, look, like when I've put out the Salafi Aqeedah challenge, Salafi Aqeedah, any Salafi Sheikh, Salafi Aqeedah, aa jao yaar. आ जाओ यार देखते हैं मजा आएगा. So look, I don't have to agree with them or talk to them. What difference does it make? Have a joke and a laugh. We'll see what else we get to learn about God. But yeah, so but that's the weird thing. Asrar, I would love to get Sheikh Asrar, my beloved on. But I don't think he would ever agree either. You see, weirdly, I actually feel maybe someday Sheikh Asrar might agree. He's kind of got that personality. See, the thing about Sheikh Asrar, though, I do, this is a good quality, is that if he kind of gets convinced about doing something, he just won't care what his people around him or what, he'll just do it. So, like, hence he makes many blunders as well, because he just kind of does it. But you see, that mentality is also praiseworthy in this kind of thing. I think so I can kind of see maybe someday Sheikh Asrar might come on Mind Trap. You never know. Beloved. Yeah, dosti. So that's right. Okay, what's going on, people? Somebody said, Asim saying, I'm not hourglass shaped. I'm not that feminine. But yeah. What this one? Okay, Asim. What shape are you? Like, is this how the conversation's going? He's like, hey, I'm not hour shaped. Okay. I wouldn't expect it to be hour shaped, but not that I had an interest in it. I mean, I think it would be rather concerning if it was hour shaped. Yeah, doctor, I think there's a problem down here. There's it's like your ship is playing shape. Your ship kya ho raha hai? So, yeah. Mufti, could you encourage your followers to visit the troll network and become followers? My pic is of a green troll with boxing gloves. I don't know what that is. I can't encourage them to go there. Yeah. For all I know, they go there and you hack there. So, yeah, I don't know. I have to check out these things. We need Dr. Kashif back. Yeah, Dr. Kashif is epic. Nak, Noman Ali Khan, I could ask him, but see, Noman Ali Khan had this, he's kind of gone dark for maybe over a year now, over maybe about a year and a half. He's kind of gone dark and he's not really, so I don't know. I don't know whether he would, because he did used to have a rule first. He only does Bayyina stuff. He doesn't come on other people's shows. But then following the spice, following the...
Let me add a little bit of spice to that.
I know he did appear on some podcasts with other people, but it'd be interesting. Why not? Let's ask him. Let's see what he says. Cool. Let's... All right. So, peoples. Let me take a look at the Facebook. And then we're going to start. Listen, kid, we're not in Pakistan, so take it easy with your patriarch, George Maham. I don't know what that is. If you're coming on this stream to start trouble, expect pushback. Leave them alone. If somebody is trolling people, you will be blocked. Could naughty Mufti remember his prison? The fun times. Shower, soap. What is this one? No, I do remember. Of course, I remember my prison time. Somebody had asked in the beginning. What I don't know if I reflect. What are some very difficult times in my life? Some very sad. I don't know actually. There's been some very challenging moments, unquestionably, in my life. And naturally, they would have had sadness with them. But I'm trying to think of grieving sad. I don't know if I can think of grieving sad. Obviously, childhood is just something which I can't even go into. It's just like lock that basement, and yeah, that would have been a very interesting time growing up. But all the therapy I've had to watch This Is Us in just slow series at a time for therapy to kind of like heal myself. I gotta say, it's so wow, man. It just hits me so much, that TV series does. But yeah, what times have been? There have been times. Obviously, see, some things could be very personal, so I don't really share very personal things. Not my style. So yeah, there probably were some very tough times. I remember, if I try and think of flashbulb moments. So there was a time I remember when I was studying, but it kind of comes to mind a very difficult time. I mean, I don't know if it was a very difficult, but that moment was very overwhelming from an emotional perspective. There's obviously been, many challenges since I've been back, and many ups and downs and roller coaster of a ride. But but what is worthy of mention though? Definitely, I do. Yes, I mean, it is unquestionable that it's not the prison thing, but you see, prior to the prison, there was the whole turning my life upside down because of it. Not the prison itself. So you have to remember that the arrest kind of turned my life upside down. It clearly did. There was no question. Like, I won't lie, when in my life there's a marker of that kind of pre-arrest and post-arrest. I mean, there's a kind of a blur till prison and all that kind of thing, but that actual point, there's a kind of like an unintentional kind of marker. The way people see like kind of events pre 9/11, post 9/11, in my mind, I kind of see them like that, and because you see, it kind of came out of nowhere, and my life was kind of going full steam ahead in directions. I was teaching online, I was teaching classes, I was doing things, I was doing all kinds of, and everything is, it's hustle and bustle, and traveling and this, and I'm not saying things didn't restore. Things in many ways got even better later on, but for that moment, in fact, I recall I had actually just come back from a trip abroad. I'd come back from a trip abroad, and I just got home, and it was I think it would have been a Thursday. I was very tired, and I remember I remember pulling a sickie, a sickie, tired, yaar, sick, tired, sick, same to same, huh? Cousin wife, same. So I remember kind of doing that with work for the next morning, and and then these what do you know, these bang 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 on the door, and these cops, and it came out of literally nowhere. I mean, just the day prior to that, so Wednesday night, I would have just landed back being abroad. I was abroad, and and hustle and bustle, and this, and that, and all kinds of things, and just suddenly to it wasn't just being arrested. It was that they see they kind of they said, oh, I mean, I was arrested for the alleged offense was corrupting a police officer. I was like, how can I corrupt the corrupted? I usually corrupt the ummah, but chalo, if you want me to. And to be honest, in this thing, I was actually innocent. I still maintain my innocence, but it wasn't just that. It was, see, they really wanted to make an example out of me. So they kind of seized everything they could imagine, electronic, and it had no relevance really to the kind of case, but still, they seized everything: phones, laptops, computer, iPads, everything digital just went. And I knew because they must have taken so many, whatever, phones, iPads, everything that was digital. Nothing. I've got nothing. And that shock, there's a kind of shell shock, which must have lasted for weeks. And it was and then the uncertainty of what's happening, and then this dragged on for years. This dragged on. It was so ridiculous. It dragged on for like 3 years. Or it was just under 3 years. This uncertainty of what's happening and this and that. And yeah, it was a very kind of strange time. Obviously, during that 3 years, I resumed my life. Maybe about half a year later, I'd kind of resumed my life. I'd got back to, I started teaching classes, or my religious stuff, and doing other things, and life had some kind of normality to it. But it was just strange, and they just treat you really weird, and it was unquestionably that those early months were very unsettling from the shell shock, because imagine now you have no phone, no anything, no work, everything goes from so busy to just standstill. And I think at the time it really scared a lot of people around me as well. And and that's natural. It's not their fault, but I think I would get scared as well if something happens to somebody who I'm around, and I don't exactly know what's happening. So, and I think a lot of people kind of retreated from me because they just didn't know what was going. I didn't know what was going on, and they didn't know. And it was just I'm not blaming them, but you see that kind of added to. So it was like no people, no contact, no phone, no work. No. Welcome to the world of shell shock uncertainty. So yeah, that was a very interesting. I think it left a kind of imprint on my psyche. Definitely. But I mean, like many things, look, in life you come back stronger. And I must say, Lillahi alhamd, many great things came out of that. Not directly, but as a consequence, many greater opportunities for work and things like this came out of it. Obviously, necessity is the mother of invention. You got to think out the box, and you try certain things, and and you get involved in this and that, and it works. But yeah, that was definitely a very shocking experience. And even the prison thing as well. I mean, it was prison, to be fair, kind of really worked out for me. uh huh? What is this one? Not because of my Cody, my friend, partner in crime. So he was a friend of mine, not the because it was allegedly, because the whole incident was really, it was an innocent incident. I was just simply trying to arrange a mediation for his family. The copper that I had asked that could you provide any help from the authorities, it was a domestic issue that happened. There was no domestic violence or anything, but it was a domestic dispute, as in his wife had left him. But that wasn't the issues, more the issue of children, and he was trying to arrange some kind of mediation. But the problem with solicitors is they can only do it if they have an address to write to. So we had no address, and he was going through depression, and I was just trying to arrange some kind of helpful mediation. What I didn't know is the Kappa was under surveillance. Now, he kind of was he was involved in all kinds of stuff, nothing to do with this. He was involved in drugs and all kinds of things, and being under surveillance. A year later, he gets picked up. Then they pick up everybody that's ever messaged him. They pick me up. I, unfortunately, not knowing the kind of shitstorm that's behind all of this, because they don't tell me. They just ask me, did you send this guy a message asking for this 1.5 years ago? And I kind of like, what are you talking about? Brushed it off. Even the solicitor just brushed it off as this is nothing. They came down so heavy. We had no idea where they were coming from. And then we realized, oh, it's actually to make an example of the copper. But they wanted me to be a witness for them. Now, because I wasn't prepared to be a witness, they were saying, if you admit to this copper admitted to doing wrong by agreeing to help you. Now, I was like, well, why is that wrong? So they kind of like, oh, acha putar. No, acha acha. Wrong number, right door, number next door. They go, putar. Take out the the Vaseline. So they were like, acha. So they basically made an example out of me and other people. Whoever, it wasn't just me, there were other people. And my friend, who I was asking on behalf of, they made an example out of him as well. I mean, they just added us all on to kind of get him. But he and me, right throughout our prison time, we were together all the time. Now, this was actually quite unprecedented as far as prisons go. You're not usually allowed to be padded up with your co-defendant. But it's amazing, how Allah works. In our case, it obviously the first night you can understand, okay, they put us together, but they usually split co-defendants. And we remained together the entire, I mean, it wasn't that long, it was just 2 to 3 months, but we remained together that entire time. And he actually, Blindy, if you're watching this, mwah, I love you, yeah. So he had some experience already, and so that helped massively. He had some experience with the with the prison. He knew people. He had some relatives in there, and that really kind of helped. And it was, I mean, I kind of kept myself to myself. I just used it as a time to learn. I started to read. I was reading. They allowed me to take in some books. I was reading a certain hadith commentary book and reading some other books. I took the time to learn Hindi. I mean, I speak Urdu anyway, but Devanagari, Hindi script, I started learning that. So I learnt that whilst in prison. And it was overall a very fascinating experience. So, alhamdulillah, I definitely kind of like, it's not pleasant to get into, but I suppose once you come out of it, you're kind of like, wow. You meet people, all kind of walks of life, and I wonder how they are actually. There was a guy in there who was a real kind of like, in this particular wing, he kind of like ran the house block, whatever. He kind of ran the show, and he was a Muslim, and there weren't many Muslims there. And when I was there, I was told, oh, don't tell everybody you're a mufti. And so I don't know why, but anyway, so initially in the first month I didn't. So I just keep myself to myself, but I did used to just sit outside. Sometimes I would read my books. People could see that. And I don't smoke. So if you don't smoke, you're already 90% out of trouble. Like, people ain't interested. If you smoke, that is the where you kind of get sucked into a world of problems, because you need cigarettes and you need stuff and all that kind of. So with me, there wasn't that. And there was this guy, we used to, I mean, his name was Baba. I don't know where he is now, but I hope, inshallah, he's safe and sound. But he kind of ran that thing. And yeah, and this guy, Muslim, local from Birmingham. I mean, I'd never known of him before, but he was quite notorious inside. Like, he had a huge fear factor about him. But I didn't know who he was, and he didn't know initially I was a mufti. But he knew I was into poetry, and he had this great, I gotta say, the guy was so into shairi, poetry. It was amazing, and he knew his own, and he had his own poems. And so we kind of got into a proper chit chat, and I used to proper kind of like chill, like, oh yeah, talk, say a poem, say this, say that. We were, and that was, you know, so there was some very interesting, fond memories. You have people you get to know, different walks of life, how, you know, how they, the kind of world, how it works. But yeah, interesting. And sometimes you just, you know, you treat people how you see them, and it's interesting. You know, there was this one guy in one of our house blocks, and this guy was this, I mean, he was involved in some serious next level organized, or sorry, potentially involved, and Eastern European, but he was Muslim, yeah. And you see, he kind of, when I used to come and sit out at the table, he would sit there with his friend, and he was this big hench, you know, one of those thick kind of guys, proper neck out there, and I just, you know, like, to his friend, I didn't know he was Muslim, but to his friend, I recognized he was Muslim. He had a hat on once. So I said, Assalamu alaikum, you know, and what's your name? And oh, and this. And so they told me, oh, you know, and he said, wa alaikum assalam as well. So I said to him, oh, are you Muslim? So he tells me his Muslim name. He has a different name, by the way, that everybody had, an Eastern European name, which everybody knows him by. I just knew him as Ali. And so, and I don't realize, I didn't know he was like this top, but I used to just kind of, I used to proper just chat like, oh yeah, so what's going on, Ali? I had no idea this guy was notorious and ruthless, honestly. And because of maybe just the way I used to chat to him, because I didn't know who he was. I just thought he's a regular kind of guy. He used to proper be like on a level with me, proper safe. And he started chatting to me one time, asking me, oh, what do you think about this? If this happened, that happened, blah, 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 blah. But I realized how much people feared him afterwards. Like, this event happened once where he had this outburst, and the entire block was in pin drop silence. Like, nobody would dare kind of even look at this guy. And I remember once he was fuming. He comes up to this gate, they've locked the gate, and he slams it, and this guy's a beast of a man. And they open it, and he's mad because there was some legal complications going on. And he just walks right, everybody's crapping it. And he just kind of walks to me and just kind of shakes my hand, and I just like, Assalamu alaikum. Obviously, with me, he was, because I was just maybe treating him prior to that just normal. But yeah, but it was a very interesting experience. I thought I'd share that since you asked. I don't know how these people are doing now. You know, may Allah have mercy on all of these. You know, it's interesting. You do see it's surprising because nobody is, I mean, maybe some people in the world are evil, but, you know, a lot of people, they have a very humane side to them. But they kind of got caught up in a lot of bad crap they got caught up in. It's sad, you know. May Allah make things easy for everyone. I mean, yeah. But yeah, so that's been I thought I'd share that. May Allah make it easy. We'll share some other stories another time, people. So moving on, right, a quick one. I had been asked about I'd been asked on, where's my phone? By Miss Patreoncitos. Right, no, this is not the one. This one we've already taken a look at. But, right, let me just bring up the Patreon questions. Can't have you guys looking at my pin. So here they are. Right, guys, this is going out for all of you. You're doing it. Much love. Right. So Addis had asked, Salam, dear Mufti, do you think that process relational theology as theorized by John Cobb, Griffin Ray is compatible with the Quranic worldview? Okay, briefly, process relational theology, from what I understand, it speaks about the certain core factors. One is about the ongoingness of time, like an eternality of time. That humans are absolutely, there's no kind of free will. These things I think are not so, they're neither here or there. They're not necessarily problematic. There's the element that facts or reality is constructed not just of objects but of moments and experiences and events. That's not a problem. But process relational theology says that God is kind of codependent with creation. He's kind of like, I haven't fully understood what they mean or why they say that. I mean, from what I've understood, they're saying it to explain away free will. So God is kind of dependent on creation as creation is dependent on God. That isn't the Quranic worldview, so I'm not sure what is the benefit of advocating that. So yeah. Nick Hobbs says, Salam, Mufti, don't know if you've seen The Social Dilemma. So I wonder if you could explain whether fiqh has any relevance to this phenomenon. What? Software, in what manner might it be classified, given that secular society is only just beginning to discuss the damaging impact of these? We may be waiting a while for fiqh to catch up. Yeah, fiqh is definitely out of sync. It needs to catch up. It needs to be updated, 100%. And that is, and I think it's a one of the opportunities that came out of this Salafism was that it kind of gave a wake-up call to fiqh. So I think that there's definitely a need for that. Waqar says 2 questions from me. First one, do you think it's unfair that some people were born Muslim whilst others weren't, and that God says in the Quran that he guides whom he wills? Right. Also, the fact that some people have different personality traits. Some people may enjoy murder. Did I just read that right? Some people may enjoy murder. Waqar, I don't know about the kind of people you're hanging around with. Are you messaging us still from that same house block in prison? Waqar, is that you? you. I don't know about people enjoying murder. Some people have bad traits. My second question is by God sits on his throne on water. Is that non-literal? Yep, that's non-literal. We don't believe in these literal dogmatisms. These things are just literary expressions. They're usually symbolic. It doesn't say God sits on his throne on water, but it just speaks about that the throne is that the Lord established himself over the throne, meaning that the kingdom is his. It's that kind of it's literary speak for that. That's how you'd understand that phrase. Is it unfair? I mean, you see, salvation, I don't believe, is the exclusive property of Muslims in the Akhirah. I've got videos answering that. You can check them out. Is salvation exclusive to Muslims? You can YouTube that. I do have a video on it. Somebody, don't mention my name. Bit late. One hadith says that the Prophet said, if there was a prophet after me, it would be Umar. And then in Surah Anfal about captives, some people, Noman Ali Khan speaks about it. For some reason, my mind wrestles with this. Right, the Prophet should know the Quran better than the companions. In Pakistan, a lot of people have glorified Hazrat Umar a lot. I've heard some more about his intellect than even the Prophet. And the hadith, if there was to be a prophet after Umar, it would be after the Prophet would be Umar. Let me just come to that question. Salam Mufti. A quick question by Nisar. Is the tahajjud prayer and waking, praying at night to worship at night the best way to gain favor of Allah and to attain closeness? Is this hadith on if you make dua at tahajjud, it's the best time to ask God? It is mentioned in hadith, but look, it's a time of solitude and reflection, but it doesn't have to be the time. God is not restricted to certain temporal, spatial availability. He is always with you. It's just about getting into that moment. So, the brain, it works at certain, not just capacities, but the brain waves are registered electrically at certain hertz, the way it operates, and you will have alpha, beta. Ironically, alpha is not. People assume alpha is a good state to be. Alpha is more about relaxing, being in a relaxed state, but beta is actually the normal state that people operate at. And then you'll have theta, delta, which are going into sleep states. And then arguably there's a contestable gamma state, which is from 38 hertz up to arguably 100. People have argued for this, that this is where certain enlightenment happens. Now, what we do know as a fact is that people's states of mind is altered. Okay. Now, yes, in solitude, breathing sometimes helps that. You can control it. But sometimes being in that kind of reflective platform gives you that. But it doesn't have to be tahajjud. You don't have to think that was just encouraged in light with that lifestyle. If your lifestyle is different and something else works for you, that's fine as well. You have to remember, for that Arab lifestyle that worked, it may not work for people today who need to wake up at 6 a.m. for work. Waking up at 3 would just ruin that for them. So you don't need to feel that that's a problem. Okay. As to the question on Umar radiallahu an, here is the hadith. This is one of the hadiths. This is in Tirmidhi. There is there's other kind of variants to it as well in the Musnad of Ahmad. You do see that. Let me just try and see if I can find the other variant as well. It's not much different, but it brings the same kind of thing. It's mentioning there that, look, the Prophet is saying, "Lo kana min ba'di nabi la kana Umar ibn al-Khattab." Now, this is transmitted in Tirmidhi. It's transmitted in the Musnad of Ahmad. I think in Darmi as well. All of these narrations come from, as you can see there, I've highlighted it, Mishrah ibn Ha'an. Now, they all tend to go back to him from Uqbat ibn... sorry, let me just bring this up. Right, yes. So, yes, they all are restricted to Mishrah ibn Ha'an, who from Uqbat ibn Amir transmits this from the Prophet. The truth is, this hadith is not sahih. Okay, even though it's incredibly popularized, it is in all honesty nonsensical. Like, it's not. I mean, I suppose you could explain it away if you wanted to. You could kind of say, no, it meant in like this and that, but really I think that this hadith was just made up retrospectively by certain people to kind of glorify Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu an. So you've got in this hadith as well, when Imam Ahmad, let me just bring this up. Imam Ahmad was asked about this, even though he transmits it in his hadith. He was asked, what do you say about this hadith? قال اضرب علي فإنه عندي منكر. And also in the Muntakhab min Ilal al-Khallal, you see, and the problem is this Mishrah ibn Ha'an, even though people like Ibn Ma'in have said he's okay. Ibn Hibban has mentioned that Yarwi an Uqba manakir la yutaba alayha, and this is also from Uqba, that he transmits problematic things from Uqba, and that's exactly who is transmitting from here. And that's in the Tahdhib al-Tahdhib as well. and this is once again just really what is just coming from him. Now, some people have said there is a shahid for it from the hadith of Ismad, which Tabrani mentions, but that is problematic in its hadith, in its chain has Fadl ibn al-Mukhtar, whose ahadith are also munkar. Yuhaddith bil abatil. Now, I was going to mention, was there anything here? Now, what's interesting is some people say there's another version of this hadith by Bilal. Bilal radiallahu an. And Ibn Adi in his Kamil mentions it, Ibn Asakir mentions it, Ibn al-Jawzi in the Mawdu'at. They all comment, and Ibn Adi mentions this is from Bilal, but with this isnad, we don't really know it. This is really the same hadith from Uqbat ibn Amir that somebody has kind of tried to paint over, gloss over the chain, change it, and represent it again. And really it's the same hadith, and Ibn al-Jawzi speaking about it as well says, look, hadani hadithan la yasihan an Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this hadith it's fabricated. It was probably, somebody trying to speak very kindly of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu an, but sometimes it is true that we have over glorified. Is that a problem, over glorifying? I don't think per se, if you like someone, you over glorify them is a problem. The problem might be then when you coerce people to only follow a particular opinion that Sayyidina Umar may have chosen. That is where the problem emerges. Okay, so if you say, oh, but Sayyidina Umar did this, so now you can't disagree. Well, you're like, well, obviously we revere Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an, but ultimately the deen is from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it doesn't mean that we have a better understanding of Umar, but that we can disagree. Remember, the companions disagreed with him. We might, in some opinions, align ourselves with other companions. So it doesn't mean that. Okay, so just to explain that this hadith, that لو كان من بعد نبي لكان عمر ibn al-Khattab, is not an established hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. It is a fabrication. Mishra ibn Ha'an, as in the chain, as you've all seen, is really at the crux of the issue. Cool, I hope that helps. Let's move on, people. We've been going on way too long. Gotta wrap this up. But before we do, people, I've got to come back to our beloved. People, those of you that remember the beloved would also remember that a while back, our beloved, he went on this kind of a mental expedition to once again uncover great discoveries. He had his breakthrough video of telling us where the mountains to Ya'juj and Ma'juj were. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was definitely quite fun, and this was my reply to it. I don't know if you guys remember that. So, to refresh your memories, mi gente. Right, so this was our beloved. So, just giving you a brief backdrop, Sheikh Asrar, after having become invincible, as anybody would, let's face it, people, after having become invincible by drinking rat poison and surviving that, he has decided to reconnect this ummah with the lost gems of the civilizations that have withered away before us. Lo and behold, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, those of you that are familiar with them, who allegedly these goblins that are trapped behind some barrier, our beloved had allocated them quite successfully, as I will refresh for you guys.
Let me add a little bit of spice to that.
Not exactly. Let me refresh your memory. This was a quick recap of our beloved. So this was my video, just a short. And it brings us on to our beloved. It brought it to our attention. These mountains that you see, these mountains are in Kyrgyzstan. These three mountains, the centerpiece right here. As you can see that right there. By help of some of the people that have assisted him, has come to realize that this is actually... This is quite weird seeing two of me. Specific and incredibly intriguing map that Sheikh Asrar has got hold of, which... God, it is funny. Come on, people, be honest. Don't fight the feeling. Well, here they are. Ya'juj and Ma'juj. There they are. Ya'juj, Ma'juj. Blimey.
This map.
So this is now Sheikh Asrar himself.
An old ancient map.
His clip, part of his clip.
Of the route.
That's a very incredible map right there. I think that's satellite mode.
He took 30 men. And half of them died on the way.
What the hell?
He uses Google Maps.
Which are they?
To go to the same area in Kyrgyzstan, modern day Kyrgyzstan. So this is a modern map.
I don't know how that's modern, but okay. So
now is the barrier, a picture of the barrier on Google Maps. So people say, where is the barrier on Google Maps? So if you notice, these are two mountain passes. So these mountains are some of the highest mountains in the world.
But there's a donkey there. Saying we don't know what's inside the mountain. Obviously, it's Ya'juj and Ma'juj, you know, these creatures. Do I feel he's legit about that? As in, do I feel that's correct? So, people, our beloved had, first of all, he discovered Ya'juj, Ma'juj, some of the tallest mountains in the world with donkeys. I don't know what the donkey was doing up there, obviously, on this. Donkey's like, yaar, main kahan pas gaya hoon? And then on top of that, there's Ya'juj, Ma'juj there. So, anyway, now, after that, what else could our beloved do? Well, our beloved kind of topped him. Nobody could top Sheikh Asrar. No, Only Sheikh Asrar could top Sheikh Asrar. So here...
I mentioned regarding the story of Nuh alayhi salam.
Sheikh Asrar is going to tell us where the Ark of Noah is. Once again, it's been hidden and, you know... Or, I mean, I wouldn't say hidden. I would have said it's dissipated, but nevertheless, it's been hidden. I wonder where. I wonder how. So, people, let's get into it.
Let me add a little bit of spice to that.
I mentioned regarding the story of Nuh alayhi salam, وَاسْتَوَتْ عَلَى الْجُودِي.
So it's
that
on,
this ark of Nuh alayhi salam, it landed where? On the mount known as al-Judi. That's all the Quran states. One word, al-Judi.
Judi.
For hundreds of years, people attempted to discover the ark or the remnants of the ark of Nuh alayhi salam.
Where can it
in
be?
The Bible, in the Old Testament, we find a reference that the ark of Nuh alayhi salam stopped at mountains known as Ararat, the Ararat mountains, which are in Turkey.
Oh, so they're in Turkey, okay.
Areas of Turkey which are populated by Kurdish people.
Interesting.
So, a Turkish pilot was flying in the 1960s for map making for the government. And he found an impression on the side of a mountain. The impression, and he, of course, took photos of the impression, and the seemed like a boat.
Huh?
So then
a boat?
Archaeologists descended to the location. Archaeologists descended to the location and they found the remnants of a boat. Remnants in what sense? The imprint of a boat on the ground and the remnants of iron, meaning iron which is used for the nails.
The Iron Age?
And an exact diagram was drawn of the boat. meaning what type of
Bloody
boat was it, what size,
What more could you ask for?
and even anchors of the boat were found.
Huh?
What mountain was this? The locals, Kurdish people,
I wonder what
told them that this mountain is known as Al-Judi.
Oh,
Told them
bloody hell.
that this
That was
mountain
bloody
is known as
convenient,
Al-Judi.
wasn't it?
And that location is still open to the public today in Turkey.
Acha.
That people can go and visit the remnants of what is the Ark of Nuh alayhi salam, which has
you're
remnants of
Indiana Jones.
the nails, and people can go and look, I mean the iron.
Acha, from before the Iron
Ancient-style
Age.
anchors made from rock.
Acha. Yeah, Sheikh Asrar. Sheikh Asrar is doing it. You know, all these people are trying to look for, you know, the Quran says Judi, right? What's the what al Judi? So where could this Judi be? Where could this Judi be? So the people go, oh, this is called Judi, Mount Judi. Oh, blimey. Bloody convenient, isn't it? Oh, look. In fact, that's the imprint of a boat. You're Indiana Jones.
Archaeologists
This for my beloved.
descended to the location.
We search.
जाने कब कहाँ मिलोगे हमसे हम सफर कैसी दूरियां कैसा फासला हम यहाँ पे आए सुन के प्यार की सदा अब ना तुमसे दूर होंगे.
That's my beloved people. I think we've gone on way too long today. We got to wrap this up. Wow, it's been epic. Those of you that have already liked and subscribed, much love to you. Those of you that haven't, hello. What on earth are you guys waiting for? Miss Patriancitos, as always, much love to you guys. We will be conducting the rest of our Patreon sessions. Hang in there, inshallah. Everything is now back on track. Cool. Guys, if you need to reach out to me, Instagram is a good place. Somebody was asking, how do I reach out? Instagram is the place, people. Take care. Stay blessed. Much love. Till next week. You're doing it, people. You're doing it.
Archaeologists descended to the location.
I'm just teasing you, yaar, teasing you. What the hell are you guys still doing online? Chalo. Over and out, folks. Over and out.